Hello, everyone. Dr. Yo here. This is an unedited video as part of the Ask Dr. Yo series in which I answer your important questions. And this is a question that was asked recently from my public live Q&A by Liz. So hello, Liz. And it's such an important question, I felt it deserved its own video. Liz essentially asked, how do I stop focusing on fixing the symptoms when I actually want to get rid of the symptoms? In other words, Yonit, it's all well and good for us to say that I shouldn't be focusing on symptoms, but that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here on your YouTube channel, so that my symptoms stop and they go away and I can feel better. Major point taken here. And before I answer this question and explain how to work through this, I want to explain why Liz even asked this question. Liz asked this question because in the neural circuit world, in the world of folks who work with medically unexplained chronic symptoms, including me, but also people who work with chronic pain and chronic digestive issues, fibromyalgia, etc., there's this whole principle of outcome independence. And outcome independence basically rests on the fact that fear, anxiety, and attention on symptoms are known to cause symptoms to not only worsen, but be stuck in a chronic cycle. If this is a principle you are unfamiliar with, please pause the video here and watch my basics video. I will link to it in the video description below. I explain in great detail in that video why fear, anxiety, and attention on symptoms are a problem. But needless to say, they are not the only problem in why symptoms become chronic. However, they are a major problem. And that's where outcome independence comes in, right? Because outcome independence says, I shouldn't care about what my symptoms are doing, because if I'm focusing on symptoms, I'm turning up the volume on fear, anxiety, and attention, and that can keep symptoms going. So outcome independence is a really important thing. It's an important principle, but let's just pause and acknowledge the paradox here, because I know that the reason you're even here on my channel is so that you can feel better, just like we said at the beginning of the video. I know that the reason you're doing all the things that I'm talking about is so you can feel better. So outcome independence, if we talk about it that way, it's kind of a lie, isn't it? You want your symptoms to go away. Let's start by acknowledging that. And I think we want to rework the definition of what outcome independence even means. And once we do that, I'm going to explain how you can apply it in your daily life in a way that does reduce fear, anxiety, and attention on symptoms in the way that we want, but is also authentic and not just you lying to yourself. Because honestly, what's our overall goal here, besides obviously helping you with your symptoms? It's creating nervous system safety. And I don't know anyone who feels safer when lying to him or herself, right? Okay. So the more you try to push away, struggle against, or fight your symptoms, the more they persist. We know this is actually the problem that outcome independence is trying to resolve. But the way that I see it, your job on high symptom days is not to just pretend you don't care about the symptoms. You're going to have automatic care toward the symptoms because you're physically uncomfortable. Your job is to do the things that reduce fear, anxiety, and attention on the symptoms. It's not to not care about the symptoms. In other words, the whole idea of being outcome independent or not caring about what the symptoms do is really kind of a misinterpretation, I think, of what outcome independence really means. What outcome independence really means is not focusing on fixing symptoms when you're having a really high symptom day, but working honestly and authentically through the feelings that you're having and focusing on tending to and caring for your nervous system. When you do those things, you're tending again to your feelings on the symptoms. You're not trying to deny the experience you're having right now, but you are not increasing fear, anxiety, and focus on the symptoms, which is in the end something that's going to be very beneficial to you in recovering from chronic dizziness symptoms. Okay, so how do we do this? So, the first thing I think you need to do, step one, when you're having a high symptom day or you're feeling particularly low, which I know can happen even when symptoms aren't high, is to acknowledge that it makes sense. You are feeling physically uncomfortable. You are having a really tough time. Let's just let out a big sigh of relief and be honest with ourselves about the fact that this is really hard. And maybe even show yourself some compassion and say, yeah, it makes sense that this is hard. I'm sorry that this is so hard for me. Right? So starting there, just starting there to begin with and saying, not starting from the place of blaming yourself for caring that the symptoms are there, because blame and shame absolutely are danger signals, and that increases the likelihood that your symptoms are going to persist and continue to be chronic, right? So take the blame out of it. The second thing you need to do, once you've acknowledged, okay, this actually is hard, I'm allowed to feel like this is hard. Second thing, see if you can get yourself back into the present moment and separate yourself from the story that your anxious and fearful brain is telling you about the symptoms. And I want to acknowledge here, by the way, that many of you never had anxiety before you had symptoms. So I'm not using words like anxiety to imply that there was some kind of psychiatric issue before symptoms started. But fear and anxiety are part of chronic dizziness symptoms. Anyone with chronic dizziness symptoms has some measure of fear and anxiety. That's just the way it works. So working skillfully with fear and anxiety is really important. And in step two, what we're doing is we're noticing the fear and anxiety, we're naming, we're labeling, we're letting them be there. We're not trying to stop them in the name of outcome independence. You're allowed to have fear, anxiety, and worries about your symptoms because they are unpleasant, but we want to try to get ourselves out of the story. When you have an up or a down or a dip, or you're having a really low day, you're going to start to have all these thoughts about what they mean. It's not just about being physically uncomfortable. It's also, oh my gosh, I must not be doing it right. Oh my gosh, I'm hopeless. I'm never going to get better. This means people are going to abandon me. This means I'm never going to be able to be useful in my job. Again, there's going to be a lot of story there as well. And when I say story, by the way, I don't mean that it's wrong. I don't mean that what you're saying to yourself is true or not true. We're not here to decide whether the projection that your brain is giving you is actually correct or not. We're just here to notice that it's not happening right now. Right now, you're just having feelings and an experience. So connect to that experience. And when your brain tries to pull you off into the stories, you want to draw yourself back into your current experience, staying present with what you're experiencing right now. And I have a video that it really describes this particular step in a lot more detail. I'll link to that in the video description below. It's a recent video that I made about stress. And the third step is to attune to yourself. Okay. So, this is why I have such a big problem with the way outcome independence is often described as not caring about your symptoms. I feel like, yes, maybe for some people it is helpful to say these symptoms aren't a big deal and take a few deep breaths and I'm fine and I'm safe. And if that works for you, absolutely go for it. But for some people, you are scared. You don't like the symptoms. You want them to go away. And pretending that they're not scaring you is actually misattuning to yourself. It's sending a danger signal. And here's how I explained this to Liz during the Q&A, and here's how I'll explain it to you now. Imagine you come home from work and you tell your partner, I had the worst day, everything went wrong. And your partner was like, you're safe. Everything's fine. Nothing happened. You're fine. How would that make you feel? Would that make you feel safe? Or conversely, if you just told your partner that same thing and your partner just completely ignored you. Nope, not going to listen to you. Sorry, I'm not going to listen to you. What's the weather like today? Would that make you feel safe? No, it wouldn't make you feel safe either. Now, what if your partner completely fell apart? That wouldn't make you feel safe either, right? So if you said, I had the worst day, everything fell apart, and your partner was like, oh my gosh, everything fell apart. Oh my gosh, you're right, everything's falling apart. That probably wouldn't help you either, right? That's what happens when we get caught up in our own stories. The response that would make you feel the safest would be if your partner said, wow, you had a really tough day and it felt like everything was falling apart. I'm listening. That creates safety. Essentially, what you're doing with chronic dizziness recovery, especially when you're having tough times, it's attuning, it's creating, it's fostering this relationship between you and you to yourself. And if you can do that, you are going to create safety in your nervous system. And this is actually what outcome independence should mean. Outcome independence means you're focused on the root issue, which is lack of nervous system safety. You're not hyper focusing on the symptoms themselves, but you are allowing and attuning to how you're feeling. That, again, is what creates safety and what leads people to recovery. So thank you again to Liz for this great question. I hope this made sense. And again, please see that second video I mentioned below if you want more specific instructions on how to do this, especially step 2. The attunement part is something we'll be talking about in future content. So stay tuned for that. All right, guys. As always, questions, comments, drop them below. Please give my channel a subscribe. Please like, share this video. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, please join us on YouTube, leave some comments, let me know what you think about my content. All of these things help me reach more people. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.